I'm going to get a webcam
What?
because I have a proper recording setup, right, for audio. Like, it's an amazing setup. It's really, really good.
So does
And
this mean
then
you're starting
I
an
have-
OnlyFans?
It has crossed my mind. I actually was thinking about starting an OnlyFans.
Really?
Yeah.
Can
I
you
was
do
like,
that for
oh,
non-pornographic stuff?
Look, apparently you actually can. Apparently it's a big part of their business.
Really?
I believe it's bullshit. Like,
Interesting.
let's be fair. Can it really be that big a part of your business?
All right. Well,
If,
I think we should just quickly say hello to everyone, and then so hello everyone. Welcome back to the Fresh
What
and
up?
Zesty podcast. We're trying to inform everyone how the Aussie music industry works, and also not be too guarded with what we're saying. So yeah, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new. And yes, I'm with the sexy Chunkyluv, who's a producer in Sydney, and I am Blake Doyle. So I just wanted to quickly, before we jump into it, dude, that jumper's new, right?
yeah, man. I got a couple prototypes just to like see how it'd turn out. Turned out really nice. I like the orange.
So do
I
I.
wasn't sure how much. Yeah, I wasn't sure how much I was gonna like it, but yeah.
Well, when I get my orange Tesla Cybertruck, that's gonna match it pretty well.
You have to. I think we should get a different one for you though. It has to be like orange, but like a trench coat, but fluffy.
I'm down. But seriously though, when you get a second one of those, please, I shout dibs.
Yeah, these sizes are really small actually. Like, I'm wearing a 3XL,
Yeah, wow.
and it's like it's not. I mean, yeah, I'm a big boy, but like, I mean, 2XL is normally fine for me.
Oh, you just got more love
3XL
than anyone
becomes
else.
really baggy. Yes. Nah, but yeah, I had one of the other guys in the studio, Danny Duke. I got an XL because he was like, "Oh yeah, get me one. I'll give you the cash." I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, cool." And it was tight on him. Like, It
Yeah.
was real tight. And so
Okay.
he's wearing a 3XL.
What? Maybe the XL might fit
It's probably
me
like
then.
3XL is probably a little bit bigger than what he needs. Well, if you're a medium, I'd probably say a large.
Yeah. Well, guys, today what we're going to go through is pretty much the different ways in which you can brainstorm a song from scratch, and the ways in which Jamie uses or Chunkyluv uses that makes him like you can turn around songs freaking fast. It's also other ways that I know have helped me, and hopefully help you guys. But before we get into that, I want to jump back into the conversation we're having just before this. It's a little bit meta.
Yeah,
a little
I was
bit
a bit
deep.
sidetracked, so I'm curious to like actually hear what you were saying.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I just had this epiphany moment. So Stacey shone a light in my eyes, and then we started talking about the way in which the sun is God. Now, I want you to think about that because, you know, if we want to go back to religious stuff, God is the giver of all life, and if he wants, he can take it all. Now, the sun controls everything in the earth. Like, you know, if you trace back how energy originates, it always starts at the sun. So if the sun decided to just have a day off, everything in the world's fucked and it's gone. So does that mean that the sun is God?
Okay, when you explain it like that, it makes a lot more sense. Because the easiest way to answer that is no. Because first of all, the sun
why?
doesn't choose to have a day off. Like, it's not a being.
But neither does
You
God.
can't just be like, what do you mean?
God doesn't have a day off.
He doesn't have a day off, but if he chose to have a day off, he could have a day off.
But then isn't
That's
he
the
the giver?
difference.
But there's a dependence on this.
I feel like you've just like hit the crux of like how people who, you know, like go based on science and religion. Well, you know, people go based on both. This is a conversation I'm not comfortable having. I will tell you that. But when I worked in every bar, there was like 3 things we never spoke about. Because
Religion,
it always
politics,
led to
and what else?
probably just those 2.
Yeah.
There was always 3, but I can never remember what the third one was.
Probably money. But like, look, I'm not saying
Probably
like, this is not an
sports.
anti-religious
Let's be fair.
comment. I think that, you know, I have some spiritual parts within me But I would just got me thinking, you know, like,
But if you believed that God was a being, you wouldn't believe that. You wouldn't have the idea that he was the son.
but
You know what I mean?
but is
Like,
he a humanized version of us, or is he
well, I
just
mean,
a
if he
thing?
if he made us in his image,
Yeah.
then
I have a quote though that will actually like rip that quote apart, but I don't want to come across really anti-religious because I'm not. I actually am quite pro-religion, as in if it makes people happy and at ease, and I'm fucking stoked if you are at peace, and that is what's important to me. So I'm not going to say it on this podcast. It's between you and me after. But anyway, yeah, that was my random thought. Like, you know, the sun equals God. So cool. It is the giver of all life, and he is the giver, or she,
Look.
or she. We haven't determined that yet, but
no.
he or she is a giver of all life. And yeah, so the 4 types are, well, it was 3 types of brainstorming songs that seem to be really useful in churning out ones quite quickly. There is also a 4th one which we haven't included, but we will discuss very briefly because it's not something we both use typically. The 3 types of brainstorming was using influences, choosing topics,
I would say
or soundscape.
on that first one, yeah. So influences, you could almost think of that as references as well. So
Yes.
like having
Yeah.
having your, like, you know, if you're basing something off a reference, you know, like a lot of the work that I do is, you know, it'll be, you know, we'll be like, okay, well, yeah, okay, so yeah, let's
All right,
just
so
go
hold
over
on,
those again.
we'll pull it
References
back.
are-
So I'll just
Yeah.
touch on what they are, and then we'll go
Yeah.
into them in deep detail. So
Yeah, man.
kind of
I
like a
got too
contents
excited.
for you guys. Yeah. I know, it's an exciting topic. So we've got the first type, which is using influences or references. We've got the using of topics and emotions. And then we've got using sound libraries or soundscaping. And then there's the 4th subcategory, which is popular for some people, which is choosing a basic skeletal structure using chords from either piano or guitar, writing the lyrics, and then fattening it up in post with all the other sounds. So let's jump into the first one to kick this off with using influences or references. Now, you and I did that with one of my songs, one of my favorite ones, Gypsy Soul. I came to you, and the people who've heard the other podcasts have heard this, is I came to you going, I want a song that sounds like a mash between Childish Gambino, Redbone, and Muse, Supermassive Black Hole.
Supermassive black hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost said red hole.
Yeah. Well, our working title was Supermassive Red Bone. So, yeah, like in this example, and I'll get you to touch on it in deeper once I explained it. It literally, like, at the beginning, it was almost like we borrowed parts from Redbone at the beginning, like with the bass. And then we had like a shredding guitar sound like from Supermassive Black Hole. And then the combination of the two ended up creating a very unique song.
Yeah.
And where I typically used to be very concerned because I know the references, I forget that other people don't. That I get concerned going, it sounds exactly like these songs. And I'm going to be dumb for plagiarism, but you hear it and you kind of can go, oh yeah, I can see that. And as a result, using a hybrid in a way of 2 different songs, we were able to create an extremely unique song. So you've used that a lot of times before, you know? How would you typically do that?
Look, I think
the
the first thing to make sure that you're aware of is, you know, if you are using things as references, you're using them as influences or references. You're not copying, you know what I mean? You're basing your, I guess this comes under the soundscape as well, like when you get to that sort of thing where it's like, if you're using an influence or a reference, what part of that are you using? You know what I mean? Like, what part of that are you like, oh, I like that? So it might be, you know, from Redbone, it might have been, the bass, you really like the bass. But then from Supermassive Black Hole, you sort of like the grandness of the whole track. You liked how big it was. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, what specific aspects. And this is something where if you are already aware of this, it'll speedline the process for you or for your producer, or for your whoever's helping you write or make the instrumental, or whatever you're doing. So if you're talking, so in terms of like let's say the instrumental and things like that first, if your references are based on a couple of key elements, you're like, oh, I really like the guitars in this song, and like sort of where they sit and what they're actually doing. They might not actually be playing the chords, but they might just be doing little fill things here and there. Or I love the pianos because I really love that sound of a real piano. It's like, okay, well, that's cool. But then it's like, you might have songs where you're like, I love the rhythm that bass is doing.
Yep.
I love how it's just, it's not just playing on the 1 or on the 3. Like there's a little bit of syncopation or whatever it might be. Because, you're using a reference, you know what I mean? Like you're not trying to recreate that song. You're trying to draw inspiration from it.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing to really, really, like a lot of people think when, you're using references and things like that, you're like, oh, you're just remaking that song.
Well, I guess it's okay. So music is just like Mr. Potato Head. Like at the crux of it, it is a song, a potato. And then you like the eyes from this song, and then the legs from that song, and then the hat from another song. And you just take those elements, put them all together on your potato, and then bam, you've got a unique Mr. Potato Head, i.e. a song.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to look at it in its fullness, but you have to sort of break down each of those things that you're taking off.
Exactly.
So the eyes might be something from that song, but it might just be the shape, or it might be the eyelashes. And then your ones are a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the idea is that, like unless you're actually sampling, and that's a whole nother ball game. Unless you're actually sampling and using that exact riff or that exact note, run or whatever, you're taking, I guess, the idea of the eyes from that Mr. Potato Head, the idea of the nose from that one, and the idea of the lips from that one, but make them a little bit more like this, or make the eyelashes a little bit longer, or a little bit fuller, or make the eyes like more green, not blue, and that's the individual details that you're changing, to make it unique. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so take the individual parts and then change them individually, and then all of a sudden you've
or
got
you might just have one reference.
Thing.
You're like, I just fucking love this song. I love everything about it. I want to make something like this, which happens all the time. And it's like, okay,
I was guilty of that.
That's mad. How, like, every now and then I'm like, okay, how do you expect it?
How do you expect to release that without getting copyright infringement?
Yeah, and so then it's like, okay, cool. Well, like I'm gonna take, and then it's it's sort of based on like the producer, and it's like, okay, how to decode what the artist is saying. Like, okay, what do you think they like about it?
Yeah.
Like, and you have to answer this question yourself, because you can't ask them, because I'll be like, I just like everything. Just give me everything.
Yeah, that
so
is actually something that's really important. I think that artists and producers can really like go a few layers deeper. Like we sort of like it's like fitness. Like where is your muscle currently hurting? Everywhere. I can guarantee that your squats are not hurting your neck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like as in bodyweight squats, I can guarantee that your biceps are not sore from doing calf raises. So being able to with the music,
you don't know how I do calf raises.
Yeah. But it's the same thing, like, because I get that all the time.
100%.
Like, where are you sore? Everywhere. You're not. I know you're not. And that's with music. Like, what do you like about it? Everything. Why? Where? Yeah. Like, what parts of it? And how do we dissect that and learn from it so that we can
It comes down to communication.
But understanding too. Don't just 100%. Accept it on the surface level. Like, yeah, you love this song. Why?
What is the detail?
Yeah, what is the melody doing? What is the underlying bass doing? Is it an 808? Is it actually just a bass? Is it a square bass? Like, why are you liking those things, and why are they hitting your personal preferences? And how can you replicate them and then tweak them so that you can make your own unique Mr. Potato Head?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I think it's such a funny funny topic to talk about because nobody wants to nobody rarely wants to talk about the fact that they'll use a reference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be seen as though they're copying someone else.
Well, the weird thing too is I feel like the bigger the artist, the more they're open they are about it.
Yeah.
Some of them, but you know,
Some of them.
yeah, some of them, but yeah, references totally. And like the cool thing is too, like I kind of enjoy going to people, and you guys might be different, but I really enjoy like when I go, yeah, I really just wanted to create a Supermassive Black Hole meets Redbone song, and people are like, holy shit, I can actually hear that. Like the way the vocals move, it sounds like a little bit of that funk part in Redbone, but then also the chorus sounds like Supermassive Black Hole, and they're like, shit, yeah, okay, I can hear that now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
knowing
think,
that they didn't hear it was cool. That's my thing
100%,
anyway.
100%. You know, like, and that's the thing, like, if you never told them about that, they wouldn't have picked it up.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have picked it up at all.
But that's how you can gauge it too, is like, just tell them, and then if they go, oh yeah, then you're like, good. It is far enough apart for them not to know. Use your friends and stuff as references for the general public.
You weren't even, you didn't tell them, you know what I mean? Like, that's enough, you know?
100%. Whereas I did the opposite with Hit You or Thank You. I remember I played it to Soiree, and Soiree was like, oh, you got a Childish Gambino Heartbeat vibe to this, and like off the bat, like the first 20 seconds, I was like, maybe it's too similar.
Yeah, that's, you know, like, and that's where, you know, sound selection and, like, you know, thinking about how you're doing it comes into play.
Yeah.
Like, I made a track the other day, like a beat, I was just mucking around, but I wanted to, you know, Needed Me by Rihanna?
Yes. Yep.
So it's got
Great
this
song.
synth in it that's really, really cool. Like, it's a wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
I wanted to recreate that. Like, I wanted to be like, okay, like, I love that. Like, I love everything about that synth is like what I love about synths, basically. And so I was like, okay, not because I want to make a song like this, I just want to be able to recreate that sound.
Yeah.
This is the nerd shit that I do.
But that's the nerd shit that people want. Like, even Travis Scott is a fucking music nerd. You know, like you can see
I've
on
seen
the outside.
some of his videos. It's crazy.
Yeah, and this is the thing that people forget, and I think that is really important. It's like, cool, have your brand. You know, like Badass, who's fucking like, you know, a Crips or whatever. Like whatever is the brand, but the behind the scenes thing is, they're not out there doing drive-bys. Like some might be, but you know, like people aren't out there getting in fights with people, doing all this shit. Like they're actually at the fucking studio. That's how they make the music that you fucking love. You know what I mean? Like, there is a nerd element to them. And I'm not talking about like 100%. This classic put on some cute nerd glasses and pose on Instagram and pretend like you're a basic bitch nerd. Like literally, like you said, you dive in like, holy shit, like that sound. How did they create it? Reverse engineer it. And then that in itself, like you don't have to write a song. And this is something I've been guilty of. It's like I get like every time I'm in my home studio, I have to write a song. Well, no. What about, all right, I just learnt, you know, that how to make a sub bass. I just learned how to make a unique lead bass or lead synth, sorry. You know, like those in itself are insane. Could you imagine if you did that once a day? Learn a new different type of synth creation?
I spend probably like a minimum, like, you know, it's probably way more some weeks, a little bit less other weeks, but minimum of 10 hours a week, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Just like maybe watching some YouTube videos or watching some interviews or watching tutorials and like learn or just like going into my synths and being like, okay, let's fuck around. Let's see what we can come up with.
Well, you're sharpening your axe. You know, like it's that saying of, you know, two people have blunt axes and who would you back? The one who they have an hour to cut the tree down. So one just starts fucking axing. She's like, I got an hour to cut this thing down. Or do you back the guy who spends 45 minutes sharpening the axe so that literally when it's so fucking sharp that he just goes whoosh, and the tree's down in one hit.
Yeah.
You know, like keep sharpening, and that's what you do, man. Like I see it all the time. I'll come over, you're like, yeah, I just spent like last 10 hours vibing, chilling, doing like different sounds, and then I see that when I'm in the studio with you, when you're in the studio with other artists, you are just like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're just like, oh yeah, I got this cool synth idea, and then it's just like 5 minutes later, it's like this like sound. And I'm just like, how did you just do that? You're like, oh, it's here. You know?
Or it's a patch that I saved.
Yeah.
Because I pre-made it. And I know that time is valuable.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a whole nother thing, bro. Oh.
Yeah. But again, like you're sharpening your axe so that later when an artist is in the studio with you, you're not spending 3 hours trying to create a unique sound. You're like, oh, this is what you're hearing? Sweet. 5 months ago, I came up with this idea that I was just fucking around with. Here you go. And like now I can
actually use it.
Now you've given so much value to that person, and then they're like, holy shit, you did that so fast. And you're like, yeah, I did it when it was hard, and now it's easy.
Yeah. 100%.
That on the last topic of this one with the last part of this, using influences and references, something that's really important that I am guilty of is we get trapped into listening to the same songs over and over and over and over and over again because we like them. You know, like lately I've been doing like, and you don't have to listen to, it doesn't have to be the same, a different genre all the time. Like if you are writing rap, some people will be like, oh, listen to country, listen to Beethoven to get you don't have to. But the greatest thing about Spotify, and I'm not sure if Apple Music has the same thing, is that radio for you or playlist for you, daily mix. That in itself, if you're training or you're doing whatever, chilling, have that in the background, because now and then some fucking unique song will just in the background. You're like, whoa, why did that grab my attention? And I would never have stumbled because I don't want to. Spotify's taking out the hard work from you. You don't have to sit down and randomly search through Spotify. You let it do the job for you. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow. And have a playlist that you say, like I've got a playlist where I'm like, oh my God, that's a sick song. Save to playlist, whatever I named it as, so that when I'm writing songs, I'm like, fuck, I have no idea what I want to do. So I go through that playlist and I just play one of the random songs. I'm like, not vibing with that one tonight, not vibing with that one. Ooh.
Yeah.
And then bam, like, okay, cool. Now I have a bit of a kickstart to doing it.
Yeah. Well, well, I mean, with a lot of the artists that I work with currently, one of the main things I do is, if it's not because they want to have music that specifically sounds like those songs, sometimes it's just for me to understand them more as a person. I'll be like,
oh yeah,
send me some references. Like, send me some ideas. Send me some songs that you love listening to. Send me, where do you want your music to sit in today's genres, and where do you want your music to sit within all those genres? And I'll be like, send me send me a whole bunch. Like one of my old lecturers, Michael Carpenter at JMC, he had this thing where he was like, when I have a new artist, obviously this was a different time period, but he was like, I'd get them to, like, my initial email with them would be like, all right, so if you had, and this is taking us way back, but if you had a 6 CD changer in your car,
oh yeah, I remember them.
What would those 6 CDs be, and why?
Yeah. Again, why? Such an important question.
Amazing. Why is such an amazing and important question? And that's the one that a lot of people sort of, like, you get references and stuff, and that's all good and well, and you'll go through them and you're like, oh yeah, cool, we can like vibe off this track and make something, like with a similar bounce or with a similar, feeling and things like that. But it's like, why do you like this song? Like, what about this song do you like?
100%.
And I think that's more of the question that people need to start asking.
Yeah.
Or if they aren't asking that already.
Well, that's why it's such a confronting question, and people don't like the question why. Because it means, fuck, I have to think. Like, that's why, I mean, look, kids are probably the most annoying about it, so they just ask why when they have a concrete answer. But it is, like, I think the question that's gotten me in the most trouble with every employer I had in the past was why. Because it's not me being like, fuck you, why are you doing this? It's like, all right, cool. You're giving me this rule. Why? So that if someone else asks me, I can answer them and not look like a schmuck.
Yeah.
But that
100%.
one question got me in so many, I was being told I'm confrontational. I'm always trying to like question what they're doing. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's important, like what you're saying. It's important that we understand
100%.
what we're doing, because it'll make the learning, it'll make the creating process so much faster and more fun. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Quick question with sampling. So I know that sampling's a popular thing, but for everyone out there, sampling is a fine line with copywriting. Where does it become no longer copyright infringement?
It doesn't really.
So even if I had like I suppose it depends on the size of the artist would depend. Like if you use a Kanye thing and then even detuned it, reversed it, and did all this shit, and they found it, they'd probably sue you.
Well, I mean, like, I think to answer this, you sort of have to understand where sampling culture came from. There's actually a book, because I chose this whole thing, as like the topic for my thesis at JMC. Like we had to do it wasn't a thesis. It was a big essay.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way, because we had a word limit. I was like, why have you put a word limit on a thesis?
Yeah, thesis. Isn't that meant to be like the same size as an encyclopedia?
Yeah. So my thing was like about, I can't even remember it. Let's see if I still got it here.
Because I remember there was a DJ and his whole
definitely don't
thing was sampling, and that was before it was really a crime or a copyright infringement. And like he had, I mean, I think he was used as the example when they started suing people, but they didn't sue him. He was one of the only people that could continue to sample stuff, but he had to reference it in the back of the CD package. Because if they did sue him, it was I think in one album he had 1,000 samples, and it's like, cool, you sue that guy for 10 grand per sample, the dude's fucked, you know, and his whole brand is sampling.
Sampling was used to, sampling was a way for, when hip hop started, sampling was a way for people to take mainstream media, mainstream music and things like that, and use it and flip it into their own feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this was back in, obviously it's still going on, but this was back when there was a lot of gentrification going on in poor areas in America.
Mm-hmm.
Poor African American areas, and they were trying to gentrify, I think it was the Bronx. It's been so long since I've looked this up, but basically, it was a way for them to take what was going on and flip it to basically say what they wanted to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a way. Well, how do you? I'm lost for words this morning. But yeah, so you have to look at the originally what sampling was, and then once you understand that, I'll let you know the book that I was reading, because it's amazing. It goes through all of this stuff. You can put it in we'll put it in the video description so people can look it up. When you're talking about sampling and copyright infringement, there's a few different levels that you have to look at. You've got the mechanical part of it, so the actual recording.
Yeah.
You know, you're sampling that, but then you're also sampling composition.
Gotcha.
And there's a couple of things that you're taking into account when you're talking about copyright. So, you have to be aware of those things. Look, and the way that we can chop, screw, and change audio in this current day and age, unless it's so obvious and such an amazingly like well-known sample, like, and there's some songs that are just like that,
Yeah.
where you would know 100% that it was from that song.
Yep.
I be prepared, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I guess everyone's scared of the the one-offs where, oh shoot, who was it? Marvin Gaye, the Marvin Gaye estate.
Yeah.
And they're suing ones, and
Yeah.
like the one with blurred
That's
lines.
that's
like, that was a stretch.
that's not so much. That's not sampling.
Yeah, that was just like
That's
simple
just
beat.
straight copyright infringement.
Yeah, but
That's
even
just-
that
yeah,
one
that's-
was a stretch.
It was a big stretch, but they won. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That was the closest we've ever been to somebody being sued over a chord progression,
Yeah,
which is
that's when it gets bad.
unfathomable.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, because once the freedom to use the same chord progression goes,
you can't write songs.
like, you can't write any more songs.
No.
But then it's like, if you were to do that, then you'd have to go back and, like, everyone would start suing everyone else, and then it'd become an absolute clusterfuck.
Well, that's where
It'd
it's
be so
like,
bad.
that's where I'm like, what is it? This book Tribes that I'm reading at the moment. He referenced, like, I was reading it 2-3 days ago, and he brings up like every business book I read, I hate it because at the same time it also brings up how fucked the music industry is compared to where like with the introduction of the internet, the industry as a whole was, and TV's guilty of this too, we're too egotistical, industry as a whole, we're too egotistical to adapt with the times. That instead of like what PlayStation and video games did, like you can't rip their games off. Like there's things within the programs that if you don't have the actual legit one, like PlayStation 1, there used to be a chip that you could put in to get fake games. They found out that was a thing. Rather than going around suing people, they're like, all right, how do we create a unique fucking product that you cannot rip off?
Yeah.
Whereas the music industry and the TV industry didn't do that. They went around suing people. So the people who won were really the lawyers, and the industry is at long run has really taken a huge, massive kick in the dick, rather than focusing on things like maybe building a culture around music. Let's focus on building a culture around, supporting the artists. You know what I mean? Like imagine if that was a thing. Like we sort of touch on it here and there, but it's never an ongoing thing. Like how can the industry build excuse me, how can the industry build a culture where people are like, fuck, you are actually you are doing a job,
Yeah. Well, it's it's the basis of why companies like Spotify have been able to take the game.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Not just like streaming services were always going to come into play, with the development of, the internet and further technology. That was like, you can see that was always going to happen. How easy is it to access music? Like that.
Yeah.
The ease of access was always going to come. What could have changed is, I don't know, maybe how artists got paid. You know what I mean? Like the worth of music. And I think that's something that took a massive hit when you think back to Napster and when all that started.
Yeah.
And
LimeWire.
LimeWire and things like that.
Bro, that was like that was like the hooker on, like LimeWire was like the hooker on the street that had every STD, but you still went bareback and went, oh, please don't give me something. My computer will be fucked every time. Never learned.
But the way that they dealt with that whole Napster situation, like, if they had taken a different approach, what would the music industry be like now?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Imagine
the fact that
of
you think
condemning
software companies are the biggest players in the music industry. Apple, Spotify, what is it? Tidal. Like they're not music companies. They're fucking.
Imagine
they're
if that
companies.
started when Napster started instead of it being condemned.
100%.
You know what I mean? Imagine if Napster was absorbed and made into a legitimate thing where people paid. That would have been the birth of Spotify. They did it. You know what I mean? They made iTunes. They made the iTunes store.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the way they went about it, like it could have been so different.
Yeah.
it would have been a massive change for me anyway. I think that. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but
Yeah.
I think that was a massive turning point for the industry because it
Yeah.
showed how the executives of the music industry dealt with things.
Yeah, well, they didn't know how to. But I mean, well, look, we could go down a massive rabbit hole in this one too. Probably should keep on the point of this podcast. This is probably a whole thing in itself. Like, but yeah, I think know the enemy. We know where we're at right now, and how do we apply and how do we take it from now on. So yeah. So number 2. So we've gone through influences and references. The next one is now topics. So finding a topic, like, is there something that's grinding at you? I don't know, like a girlfriend, like, relationship that's falling apart, or you love it? Or is there, like, how you're feeling at the moment with coronavirus shutting shit down? Is there an injustice? Like, what is the topic behind something that you want to bring your heart out and put it into a musical composition that other people can relate? How do you go around that?
Well, look, I mean, there's a lot of people who work with me know I might say things in terms of vocals here and there, and make suggestions, but ultimately I leave the lyric writing and things like that up to the artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But knowing the topic can help you with your stuff as well, though, in terms of, like, what
of course,
the
like,
mood
if
is.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, like, before this, I said emotion, and it was like, well, you said, like, isn't that a subcategory of topic? And it's like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So if if somebody tells me a topic, I sort of understand what way they want to go about it. You know what I mean? But then there's also the way of, like, say you're writing something that's quite sad, say that's the emotion that you're getting from this writing. It's like, okay, well, we can make it sad, and we can make an instrumental that's gonna probably make people cry. You know what I mean? Or, we can make it a little bit more, juxtapose that.
Yes.
So
That's
say you have some sad lyrics, and then, instead of us wanting to just, be so depressed, like, okay, how about we juxtapose that with the instrumental? So let's make some not over the top cheerful, but make some happier chord progressions or changes that will then trigger the writing to be felt in a different way.
Yeah.
And
that's the cool relationship.
I don't know if
it's a relationship.
melancholic is the right word.
I don't know. But, like, even, like, other stuff, like, you have a badass song beat that sounds like, you could easily rap about, robbing a place over this beat. But instead, like the song that we did, the Muck Around TikTok song, the beat is pretty dark and badass. But the song is about my inability to get myself to bust the nut because of everything being locked down and I can't get to a girl. Like, it's badass, but it's like, then you got the flip with the funny lyrics and a struggle. Like, you could, like, being locked up at home could be a sad story, could be a funny story, could be a badass story. Like, there's so many directions you can go with to create this
How does it
potato
react
head.
with the music that you put behind it? That's the main thing.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
I mean, you can do that from, like, if you got the emotion from the beginning, or sometimes you might not know until you've created the beat. Like, often when we're creating beats, I'm just like, let's just create a beat. And then I'm like, ooh, this is a thing that's in my head right now on a topic. Like, I didn't think about it, but now that I hear this beat, I'm like, let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, there's always the case of, you might start like we've started a beat, and then, you've written some things to it, and it's like, okay, well, I think these need to change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Depending on the mood, that, like, I think, the mood of the song takes so much into account.
100%.
At the moment, what I've been doing with a couple of mates is, like, getting them to send me, like, acapellas, just to help me with my writing process, like, with beats. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, I don't want to come up with the same chord progressions. Like, I get bored, I get burnt out like everybody else. So I'm like, I need something to spark some sort of inspiration. Yeah. So, they'll send me an acapella, and they'll send me the beat that they use to make the acapella.
Okay.
To give me, like, timing reference and things like that. and I'll hear the beat, and most of the time it's like a trap soul-ish YouTube beat, whatever, and then man, very speed and Logic. This is one of my random points. Very speed function in Logic is a fucking game changer.
Very speed.
Yeah, check it out. So you can there's options that you can choose. You can choose speed only, or speed and pitch.
Yep.
And then you can choose to vary speed based on the tempo, the tuning hertz. So normally, standard concert tuning is 440 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can change it depending on pitch, like semitone tuning. I think there might be one more. Or just the percentage from where it originally started.
Yeah.
So I normally go off tempo, because that's just
Easy.
what works best for me.
Yeah.
It makes more sense for me, so I can see where it's sitting in tempo. And then whether it goes, and I'll do speed and pitch.
Yeah. Okay.
To give the song a whole different soundscape.
Yeah.
Because obviously when it does that, it changes the vocals. When you slow things down, it starts to really elongate the mouth and open the mouth up.
Yeah.
Or when it goes high pitched, it becomes almost like a chipmunk.
Yeah. I did that once by accident. I was like, this song sounds horrible.
Yeah. So I'll use that, and I'll find where the acapella sits nicely to my ears.
Yeah.
And then I'll make a completely new instrumental based off that.
Yeah. Okay. Fire.
You know what I mean? And then strip the vocals.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually that's
not
bad. It's like an exercise for you as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, the way I look at it is it gives me a chance to try. I've always liked writing chords to melodies.
Yeah.
Because your chord, you can go purely based off the notes they're hitting. You know what I mean? So there's chord progressions and movements that you wouldn't normally think of.
Yeah.
So for me, that's really cool, because I like it gives it a more unique approach to that song. It's like, okay, well, what is the melody doing here? That chord goes in here.
Yeah.
And the timing might be a little bit different. So it makes something unique. But yeah, that's something I've been doing lately, and coming down to topics and things like that. Maybe what I've had with a lot of artists is we'll start writing a song in a certain tempo, based on a certain topic and everything like that, and then we'll get halfway through, and this is the most annoying fucking part. We're halfway through tracking the vocals, and then one of us will decide to be like, "I wonder what this sounds like, pitched down 1 or 2 semitones, or slowed down 5 BPM."
Yeah.
And then we'll be like, "Yeah, Matt, it sounds better. So let's fucking go all the way back to the start."
Yeah.
And retrack.
But does it sound
at the end
better
of the day,
'cause
you
it's
end up with
new?
a better song.
Because that's another thing we've got to be
No,
careful
it
of
sounds better
sometimes.
because it fits the melodies.
Okay, gotcha.
Sometimes when you're writing, you might write an idea. It might be a quick idea, but maybe the tempo you're at is a little bit too quick.
Yeah.
But you don't really realize until you've recorded it and listened to it back.
Yeah.
And been like, okay, it's getting a little bit too quick in this section. So it's like, how do we counteract that?
Yeah.
I think that's one cool thing about that was sort of that sort of disappeared in writing music these days.
What was that?
Because
sorry?
we all write music to tempo, right? We all write to a click track. All our MIDI is, well, for the most part, is synced to a click track.
Yeah. There's no real swing to it
Whereas
anymore.
back then everything was synced to each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The band was in time with each other. They weren't in time necessarily to a metronome the whole way through the track.
And there is something magical about that. I didn't notice that until you pointed that out 2, 3, 4 years ago, probably. Perfection is actually uncomfortable to listen to.
But it's so damn difficult.
Yeah. Well, because we get so used to we'll just fix this a little bit. And
just nudge it, make it perfect. Yeah.
Just might make it perfect.
This idea of being
perfect.
perfect.
Quantize button, man. Quantize is actually it's a good and a very bad thing because as you said,
blessing and a curse, man.
Well, the thing that catches our ears is that slight imperfection. It has to be slight. You can't be one person's playing a song at 100 BPM, the other one's playing at 106. That's not going to work. But
yeah, of course.
It's true. As long as it sounds it works together, but there's those things that are inconsistent. That's the thing that catches our ears. But Yeah, the last one what we've got is soundscaping and sound libraries. So this is one that I love doing because sometimes, I mean, you hear a synth and it's like cool, but you just don't really know what the fuck to do with it. Like you're like, oh, what melody? I don't know. I love just going through Splice, spending an hour or two, and just going through sound libraries of riffs, you know?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like maybe a sub bass or something will kick in, and I'll hear it, and I'm like, oh. And then I'll put that in the timeline, and then I'll be like, I feel like this needs a clap, and so I go searching for claps, and then put one in, it doesn't work, and then again creating that Mr. Potato Head with stuff I'm coming across sound libraries. Don't get me wrong, like after an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes where I'm like, this is amazing, and then like on the 1 hour and 31st minute, I'm like, this sucks, and I throw it all fucking away.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's a really
100%.
cool creative version, I think, that we have got now that we didn't have before. You know, like people would have to spend hours and hours and hours of creating their own sample packs and then storing it in a floppy disk or something like that.
Yeah, man.
Whereas now it's like, fuck, you go to Splice for $12 a month or whatever it is, and then you literally can just have a binge day, like buffet style, and just going, all right, I like that, I like that, I like that. Throw it all in the mix. Does that work? Great. All right, cool. Now I've got, now I've got a 2-minute song written completely in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it sounds unique. It's completely unique. You're not cheating. You're not. You are helping yourself a little bit, but it's a unique song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's why sources like Splice exist.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it was a way for people to find sounds that they couldn't make themselves, or find ideas that they wouldn't be able to come up with. Like there's a lot of producers that don't have a lot of musicality and they rely on samples.
Yeah.
That's not a dig. That's if that's how you produce music, that's how you produce music. There's nothing wrong with that.
They're just using tools differently.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Exactly. It's what makes us all different. It's what makes us come up with different ideas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Because four people can use the same sample from Splice, but they're going to use it completely differently.
Yeah, and I think that's the real cool thing too. Like you can give a bass YouTube beat to 10 different people and you'll get 10 completely different songs.
Yeah, yeah. That's just individuality. That's being human.
And it's a cool exercise to practice too, just going through going through the sound things. Because I used to be one of those artists where it was like, no, I have to create everything from scratch. Yeah. And the process was painful because everything was so slow. Whereas now with those speeding up things, I actually am then in reverse engineering it. And now I'm actually learning more faster by doing it this technique than I am doing trying to start from the very, very, very beginning each time.
100%. Well, I mean, for me, like I'll use Splice, obviously for individual drum samples and things like that. That's one thing I do.
Yeah.
It's like my photo booth is like frozen.
So, okay, last thing is the one that we don't typically do, but I have done it in the past and it works great. I know a lot of artists do it. It's the singer-songwriter approach. Now I know artists like John Bellion do this, where they'll have a real basic chord progression. So that can be on a guitar, like literally just strumming chords, piano, just playing basic chords. And it's literally like it's boom, 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 like, and then they figure out the lyrics over it, and they use those bass chords as, and they put everything into the actual the DAW, and then they start adding the layers the other way around, like the reverse of what you and I typically do, which is beat first, vocal second. They go melody first, and then let's put everything around it, like, which is also a very popular one as well.
Yeah, 100%. Sometimes it's easier for, like, I know a few people that this approach works for really well, because sometimes when you have a full instrumental and things like that, depending on the sound sources and things like that that are in the instrumental, say it doesn't actually have like a piano or an organ or like a Rhodes or something like that where it's got like a clear chordal direction.
Yep.
It doesn't have that chordal tone for you to base your melodies and your scale off, right, when you're writing. So sometimes you'll need to strip back, you know what I mean? Like, and this is where it works for some people, where it's like just the chords and the timing of the chords, and they'll write a song over that. And then you put that into a different environment, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, you know, like John Bellion, you know, like he might then use those exact same skeletons in his final product, but some people don't. Some people will take, you know, the guitars or whatever, the piano, those simple chords, and they'll just get rid of them completely.
Yeah.
They'll just, you know, it'll be like, okay, cool, that was what I used to write. So all right, let's okay, if that's the chords we want to use, cool. Otherwise, it's like, all right, well, what I did, you know what I mean? It's like, how about we write chords to this new melody?
Yeah. 100%.
You know what I mean? Like what? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, it's, you know, at the end of the day, we're all different people. Some people write better. Some people write full lyrics and everything first and then put chords to it.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about it. But the important thing is definitely just like experiment with all four that we've listed today. You know, like...
Yeah. I think another, just before you wrap it up, another one is when you're writing the lyrics and things like that, a great approach that I see a lot of people that I work with use is to do the melody first. So you might have the chords or the beat, whichever one.
Yeah.
And then you might do a few passes, like four takes, let's say, of like different melody approaches over that.
You mean vocal melodies?
And then you... Yeah. So
Yeah.
different ideas, different motifs, and then you cut those four things up. You go through them, cut them up, be like, oh, I like this section, I like that section, and then piece together your song based on those sections.
Yeah.
And then write words and lyrics to those melodies.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to write lyrics and then put melodies to it. Because obviously, you know, like one of the things that people catch on to most when listening to music is the melody.
100%.
You know what I mean? Melody is something that we remember quite easily.
Yeah, well,
So
they've done studies, and the music actually triggers our brain slightly less, like just a little bit. It's the second most impactful thing to our brain to sex.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the melody is very important.
Yeah. So, you know, like a lot of the time it's like, okay, let's get a great melody, and then we'll fill it with lyrics that make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really cool approach.
Yeah, and that works
But
for a
just
lot
sort
of...
of having that like freestyle sort of, you know, having the chance to just do whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know that one, some people like really thrive on it. For me, I struggle. You know, like I feel like I need the words to dictate the melody for me.
Yeah.
But again, like, you know, some people like they just go ba 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 da ba da ba ba, and then like, you know, they can just put words in there, and I'm like, fuck you, I'm jealous.
100%. It's all based on your personal approach, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you don't know until you try it. Like, don't get stuck in the one method. Try it something different, like what Jamie does. Like, you know, just send me random shit, and I'm just gonna see what I can do, because
that's it.
You don't know. But yeah. So to summarize all that, you've got, well, we said that my theory is the sun is God, and besides that, it was we've got using influences and references, making sure go through Spotify and let Spotify do the work for you. Find stuff, have a playlist, create your potato head. The topics, use them. Sometimes they can work. They can, you know, help guide you with what you want or what you think you want, and then you find out what you do actually want. And then you got soundscaping with sound libraries. You know, just go rummaging through the record store, so to speak, like finding random shit and then falling in love. Yeah. And yeah, the singer-songwriter technique. What was that? The soundscaping one?
Go digging.
Yeah, go digging. Because you just don't know what you might find. But yeah, I hope that helps, guys. Comment below. Let us know what you got from this. And just get out there and just fuck around. You know, like figure it out and just
That's the ultimate thing, man.
if you enjoy the exploring
Can't
part
do it
of
unless you do it.
yeah, and if you enjoy the exploring part of it, because I know I used to get really stuck into like I have to write a song, so I was results driven rather than exploring driven. But there's a freedom when you go exploring instead of result seeking. So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, hope that helps, guys. We'll be back here next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And make sure to subscribe if you're new. And we'll see you guys very soon. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Chunky.
Peace out, homie.
Peace out. Bye.